Yeah, so once again, man, thanks so much for joining me here to talk about your experience with the carceral system. And here on the Prison of Promise podcast, what I like to do is um, collect stories of people who've been impacted by the criminal legal system, who've come back out into the free world, and who are now living a life of promise, who are finding ways to circumnavigate the obstacles that are placed before many of us, and with hopes of providing insights, roadmaps, and hopes to other folks who are coming behind us. So once again, thanks, man, for being here with me.
Well, thank you for having me. I'll give a little bit of background about who I am. My name is Peter Felix Armstrong. I live in Florida. I'm originally from the Panhandle, currently living in Fort Lauderdale. And I come from sort of middle-class roots. Dad is an engineer, mom is a nurse, had a good childhood growing up and everything. And when I became an adult, I entered the music industry and got a music degree. Had a band for a while, but that sort of fizzled out, and I ended up teaching music and recording some groups. And gradually through all that process, if I'm honest with myself and I look back, I sort of let my depression get a little bit out of hand, and I began treating that with alcohol. And I was sort of up and down through it for a couple of years, and then finally around November 26th of 2010, I was driving home from a bar, and I was involved in a fatal car accident. I didn't know that I was involved in a fatal car accident. It was a terrible thing. I struck a man on a bicycle, and yeah, no defense. Anyway, I'm arrested, and I'm charged with DUI manslaughter and leaving the scene of death, and facing a significant chunk of time. I'm taken right into the jail, and I end up going to trial, and I get found guilty of DUI manslaughter and get sentenced to the maximum of 15 years prison. But
Wow.
But it wasn't as bad as it could have been, because I was found guilty of what's called a lesser included offense on leaving the scene. So it could have been much worse. I tell you, Dr. Believe, when they said guilty of leaving the scene of an accident involving property damage, I thought, oh, I get to live. It was, I knew the worst it could be was 15 years, and that's what they gave me at that point.
Yeah.
So so I got sent to, and this all happened in Florida, so I get sent to the Florida Department of Corrections.
They have pretty harsh rules down there, or laws, yeah.
Yeah, they do. And the prison conditions kind of match it. Sometimes I see sort of pictures of other prison systems, like I think I saw New York once, and they had individual cells. It's like, oh, the land of milk and honey. But Florida is an open bay kind of place, and so you're around a lot of other people all the time. There's no AC. It's pretty warm, but you get used to it. And honestly, prison, as you probably know, prison is better than county jail.
Absolutely. But it's still hell.
It's still hell. Yeah.
But yo, if I could back up, man, I first and foremost want to, just issue my condolences to the family of the person that you mistakenly struck, if they ever were to hear this podcast, but also to issue my empathy and sympathies to you for, having to undergo such an ordeal. But I think that also, and part of what you're probably leading up to is how out of the darkness comes the light. And sometimes in our darkest moments, we end up seeing the light. And sometimes it comes at a very severe price.
Yes, yes, it does. When I get to prison and I start kind of, I adjust to life there. And, a common theme that you'll hear from a lot of guys who came through prison is that service to others is a true joy. And that's what I found in there. I found it first as like a GED tutor.
Mhm.
And then next I found it really as what would become the meaning of my life sort of thereafter for others, which was trying to help guys with their legal conditions. I was able to become a prison law clerk,
Mhm.
and I was 100% all in on being a law clerk, on improving my skills, on learning the law, on being able to help people. Mostly on the criminal convictions, occasionally on other things.
Mhm.
There was that first moment when I was able to help a guy, and some of his time got cut down. I remember it was like, I got 460 days knocked off. Congratulations. And he shook my hand, and I was hooked.
Wow, that's dope. So let me ask you though, man, here you are with this charge and you got 15 years on your chest,
Mhm.
and you talked earlier about how you allowed depression to get the better of you prior to being incarcerated. How did you not become overwhelmed by depression with that amount of time? And what motivated you to want to start serving people when hell, you got this whole gang of time to deal with?
Well, at first it was pretty crushing. Back in the jail, I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I was like, I thought I had problems before, but now I really got problems.
Yeah, and not to laugh, but yeah, I really feel you.
Yeah. So by I was in jail about 16 months
Mhm.
fighting my case. So I'd grown, you grow real close to your family when you're facing this hard situation. You're talking on the phone every now and again, and um I was just determined to get through it from them, and a lot of it was um alcohol kind of feeds depression, and it's like the tail of the snake is in its own teeth, and then it just gradually seizes in and in on you. And with that removed, part of me, maybe I came back to myself a little bit,
Mhm.
and I wasn't I wasn't as depressed. And I guess as you're going into prison, like really you're just kind of, you're too scared at first to be too sad.
I agree.
Like, am I going to face violence? You hear about the soap dropping,
Yeah.
and is anything like that going to happen to me? Thankfully, none of it ever did.
Mhm. A lot of that is a myth.
Yeah, I agree. The first prison shower I ever took, I think I dropped the soap, and I thought, oh, here it is. It's happening. But no, it was a non-issue.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, you dropped the soap.
pick
Yeah.
it up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. People have so many misnomers about what life in prison is like. But
Yeah,
one of the things you mentioned, is going into prison and, not having the alcohol there and kind of coming back to yourself. And I think that a couple of things can happen for people when they find themselves in prison. And one of those things is they find themselves with themselves, and they're either going to figure out what to do with themselves, or they're going to distract themselves and go deeper into, I guess, like I started out this conversation, into a rabbit hole and come out of prison in worse condition than when they went in.
I agree.
Yeah, but it sounds like you were there with yourself, noticed that, okay, all I have is me. So what I'm gonna do?
Yeah. And I had this new meaning, this new thing to chase. So I'm all in on law. I sort of embarked on a self-education program when I was in there. And I to be clear, I came to prison decently well read, but whenever I left, I was very well read. I had read every book I had ever heard of.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
had about I had a program where I would have one novel going, one sort of social science, and one sort of educational self-help thing going at all times. And I would be reading 3 books.
Yeah,
And I did that. And gradually as you discover, I guess, more about yourself, more about the law, and just I found a lot of meaning in there. And like kind of the years just slowly clicked down.
yeah.
My own case, my appeal got denied on my birthday in 2013,
Mhm.
and then it was time to seek post-conviction relief. And that, um, when you have a motion in court, it's like you always think like, oh, 6 months from now, something will change. A
Yeah.
year from now, maybe this time next year, everything will be different. And even though the horizon kept getting pushed back as time went on, that was an that was enough, combined with the meaningful work I was able to do for others.
Mhm,
And so I get to my motion finally goes to a hearing,
mhm.
and thank God I prevailed, and I was able to get a new trial on my DUI manslaughter charge. And this allowed me to finally bond out.
Mhm.
So it was May 5th of 2016. I had done 5.5 years, 5.5 calendar years in prison. And it was interesting getting out because um, it turned out like I was dealing with some post-traumatic stress sort of craziness as soon as I got out. Like I was irrationally angry. I for some reason thought my family wanted me to go back into jail
Mhm.
for a second. And
The same people that were supporting you throughout the whole ordeal.
yeah, I had some madness or something going on. And
Prison has a way of really warping our concept of self, of the world, and especially if you find yourself doing any time in solitary confinement, I think it
yeah,
could really be toxic to brain functioning and maybe even halt the development or cause a shrinkage in certain parts of our brain activity or functioning.
I I agree. I can't even explain it to this day. The you know the thing that ended up there were a few things that helped with my getting through that. Number one was my family was super understanding to me. They understood that this isn't you. This is something that you're going through because of what you went through. And um and then just gradually being around normal people. In prison you can't really you can't reckless eyeball women. You have to like kind of look down and say yes sir, yes ma'am to everything. So I got a job as a cashier, just with those little calm interactions with people, and I gradually became normal, and I didn't feel as amped up and crazy anymore.
Yeah, it takes time, man. It takes time. It's that post incarceration disorder, man. It's really real, and people don't understand that unless they've been through it. And so, one of the things I think that you mentioned, that some people, but not everyone, myself included, are should I say lucky to have is a supportive family and people that understand and people
Yeah.
who can probably have some resources to help you make that transition. So my heart goes out to those folks who don't have these types of resources or access to people that can really support them through the changes, because it's a hell of a change, man, transitioning from prison to civilian life, as you just illustrated.
Yes, it is. And so leading on from that moment, I kept the lawyer dream going. And while I was out, I took some classes for the paralegal program. And after I couldn't get a job locally as a paralegal in the Florida Panhandle, I set my sights on taking the LSAT and becoming an actual lawyer. So I did that in February 2017, scored decently. I was ready to start applying to law schools. I was praying for, hoping for a time served deal, something, but it wasn't to be. They offered a deal of plead to the lesser charge of vehicular homicide and take a sentence of 111 months prison, followed by 5 years probation. And I took that. And so I had to go back into prison. And it was heartbreaking going back in, but it was the right decision.
How long had you been bonded out prior to that?
13 months almost.
Oh wow. So yeah, you've gotten back that taste of normalcy of living in the world.
Yes, I was healed. I was ready for an upward trajectory, but it was either go to trial or take that deal. And with the lawyer I had with this second time around, like the only option was really take the deal. So,
and how much time had you done up to that point?
5.5 years.
Okay.
And so I had to go in and do another 2.5, something like that. And so I got but the end finally came, and on May 22nd of 2019, I'm done for good. And I get out and I immediately get a job working at the law firm that I work for today in South Florida.
Wow.
I was working remotely from the Florida Panhandle, sort of doing the same kind of thing I was doing while I was incarcerated.
It's kind of coaching and researching.
Yeah, trying to help guys get out.
That's some serious work, that law research too, man. That's like some serious scholarship.
Yeah, I enjoyed the mental challenge of it. And this time free, since I knew I wasn't going to be going back in, I started going to see a psychologist.
Yeah.
Right away, because I didn't want the same feelings that came up the first time to come back in. And so I did that for about 6 months, and it really helped me.
Yeah. And if I could interject, man, I think that's a very powerful piece that you just shared about seeking some mental health assistance, because again, a lot of us men in particular, we've been conditioned to believe that we don't need that, and something's wrong with us if we go seek help. And yeah, I think sometimes, especially if we're coming out of prison, something's wrong. Hell, we've just been through trauma. So yeah, we need help, And so I hope people that are listening glean from you that piece and realize it's okay to go get help, to go see a psychiatrist, to go see a counselor. Because if we had a problem with our tooth, we'd go see the dentist, right?
Right.
We broke our arm, we'd go see whoever that doctor is that takes care of those bones, or, we cracked our skull, we'd go see a specialist. But we don't think that we need to go see anybody when our thinking isn't right.
Right. I 100% agree with that. I wish there were things in place where guys or girls could get counseling when they come out, because a lot of the support that I had wasn't by any virtue or anything or any work that I did. It was just because my family was there to support me. I wish, I think about all these guys that are getting out with no support from some friends that got out I tried to keep up with them, especially in those like 2 or 3 months that are right in the beginning, because that's crucial, especially if you did a big long stretch.
Absolutely. Very crucial. So talk more about what you are doing now.
What now? Um, Now the big driving force for me is it's many things, but a lot of it has to do with education.
Mhm.
Um, I was I applied to free from prison. I was able to apply to some law schools, and I was accepted into Mitchell Hamline School of Law into the blended program,
Right
and
on.
I'm set to graduate this year in May, and that's when my probation will early terminate. And having that education and that to do has just been a driving force for me, because I feel a real obligation to the guys that are still there. There's plenty of guys that deserved the opportunities that I'm getting now and deserve the support that didn't have it. So I feel that I owe it to them,
Mhm.
and I owe it to myself to, show the world that prisoners can succeed. We can graduate law school with honors.
That's
We can
right.
be an effective lawyer.
Mhm.
And I think the law, especially criminal law, needs people that know what it's like to be in jail and in prison and facing major time,
Yeah,
as opposed to only people that got everything right in life.
absolutely. I so agree with you, bro. I talked with a guy. Well, first, one thing you said that really resonates with me is, going to school, earning a law degree, earning a bachelor's, a master's, whatever it is, a doctorate, to show not only the world, but other formerly incarcerated people that we can be academics, we can be scholars, we can arise or rise to greatness. Just give us the opportunity, you know.
Yes.
And for me, that's a big reason why I went to school and earned a doctorate degree. I wanted to be able to show other formerly incarcerated people that you're smart, you can get a degree, you can do well, you can teach, you can research, et cetera, et cetera. So right on, man. I think, we're on that same trajectory, on that same path, that same purpose in that regard.
Yeah, I believe education can give a lot of meaning to a lot of folks, especially when they're coming out.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to some other things I'm trying to do. I'm trying to figure out the way to do it, but I want to tell the story of where I was before all this,
Hmm.
so that maybe someone who is or may become in the same place that I kind of was right before all this happened,
Yeah.
that like, look, man, you need to address these problems before fate intervenes or bad decisions intervene and you end up in a place where you can't get out of, and
Yeah.
you caused harm to people that you don't even know.
As you said that, I was envisioning a garden and weeds beginning to grow in the garden.
Yeah,
And as they come up, if you ignore the weeds, they'll eventually overtake the garden. But
yeah,
if you address them as you see them sprouting by pulling them from the root, as you're almost describing, there's a better chance that your garden will proliferate and be beautiful.
I agree. That's a good analogy, man.
Dope, man. Dope. One of the things you also mentioned, man, is education. And going back to that, I think that education, as in the regards that we're talking about, academic training, I think it, again, for another analogy, it acts almost like a plow does to a fallow field, hard dirt. It turns over the dirt and makes it more receptacle to planting and for seeds to find their root in there, because it's tearing up the hard dirt. I think that that's what academics or training is. It's like a plow, and it prepares our mind to be more receptive to new and different ideas that can help propel us away from whatever lifestyle we were living that brought us to prison.
I I 100% agree.
you know so that's dope. So tell me this, man. What would you tell a young Peter before he got locked up, Peter before he started falling into these behaviors that took him on the wrong path, what would you say to him?
I would tell young Peter to take hold of the hands that are outstretched to you and accept the help that's there,
Mm,
and avert the negative path before something bad happens.
mm,
That's what I would tell young me.
yeah.
Hey, man, throughout all the years,
Mm,
when you spend time in that cell and on that bunk, you look back towards about every moment in life and you think, what could I have done differently? Say
yeah.
on the night of the crash, I could have stopped to tie my shoes and I wouldn't have been at that place in that time.
Mm,
But there were so many times before that.
yeah. 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 Those what ifs, right?
Yeah. What
Yeah.
if I had said something differently to this person? What if I had
Mhm.
stayed home that day? What if I had made a different choice in my early degree path? What if I had made a different professional choice?
But look at you today. And again, it's unfortunate circumstances that landed you in prison, like many of us. But out of that, look what we are doing with our lives today.
Right.
There's still a price that we've paid. There's still some mayhem that we left behind that we probably could never clean up, but we can learn to forgive ourselves. You know,
Right.
those circumstances, without those circumstances, I know for me, without those circumstances, I would have been dead or locked up for life. So
Yeah. It could have been me too.
yeah,
I could have been underground instead of
yeah,
behind bars.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If I could go backwards real quick too, because one of the things you mentioned that really piqued me was you said, you're also thinking about how to tell the piece of your story before you were locked up. And so what came to my mind then was, are you writing? Are you journaling? And if not, is that something you would consider doing, journaling about your life prior to being incarcerated? Because that could probably become a book or a memoir or something that you could share with people who are incarcerated.
Yeah, I've been threatening to do that in my mind for a long time,
Yeah.
thinking I should, and then detailing the path outward, hopefully with, graduating law school, taking the bar in some state and getting through the gate. So then the guys who are still there, they would know that I can do that too in whatever I'm trying to do.
Absolutely.
Because that's another meaning to the life. I want to be part of something that pulls guys up who are getting out. You
Yeah.
know, I admire what dudes like you are doing with this podcast
Well,
to
thank you so much,
get the
man.
word out and talk about bold subjects so that
Absolutely.
people
Absolutely.
understand it more.
And show our vulnerabilities at the same time, man. You
Yeah,
know, and as you mentioned that, you want to do something, I'm thinking about um maybe it was Peter from the Bible, I think, and he was a fisherman.
yeah,
He talked about being a fisher of men. I want to be a fisher of men. I want to help save men, not so much on a religious tip, but on a sense of helping them to gain knowledge of self, find new directions so that they can have more purpose in their lives, so that they don't have to undergo the traumatic experiences that guys like you and me have undergone. And even if they have, to help them find healing. Back to that word you used, I was healed and I was ready to go for an upward trajectory. And so that's why I do this. This is why I talk to guys like you. This is why I put my story out there, so that we can help people heal, you know, to help them heal.
yeah. That's the goal. Whatever looking forward, I want to be a part of people's healing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And that's a real commendable thing to do. And if we think about that concept, I want to be a part of people's healing. I want to help others. If we can reflect on the ants, the black ants, the red ants, the bullet ants, all the different types of ants that live in the crust of the earth. If we really think about it, they are some of the most adept hunters, builders, and group of living beings on the earth because of the way that they cooperate with each other. They cooperate and they help each other. And as a result of that, they are very successful in almost any endeavor they undertake or any challenge that faces them, all because of their willingness to help each other. We can learn a lot from them.
Yeah, we can. I believe that, as former felons, formerly incarcerated people,
Yeah, man.
good for us all to support one another's endeavors, validate one another.
I tell people we are all members of a unique fraternity.
Yes, we are.
And just like the Greeks fraternities and all these other different fraternities, they support each other across state lines, across international lines. We can do the same for each other, because I'll tell you, some of the most brilliant people and most capable people I've met have been behind the walls of prisons. And I spent a lot of time in university classrooms and on campuses, and I met some smart people there, but none of them have been able to top the smartest people I've met behind the wall. None of them.
That's very true. I mean, think about what the people behind the wall had to claw that knowledge out from.
And some of the people that trained me behind the wall, if it wasn't for some of those people behind the wall who gave me that initial training, that initial mentoring, I wouldn't be who I am today. And again, I don't think there's anyone in my life who has ever impacted me the way some of the men behind the wall impacted me.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the most life-changing guys I ever met was the first law clerk I ever met who was doing some good for other people.
Yeah.
I thought I had initially thought that like a lot of the jailhouse law clerks were sort of crooks.
Yeah.
Just scam artists, and some of them are. And there's you're always going to have that. But then I saw a guy who had verifiable proof of helping people, and I thought, oh wow, this would be the greatest thing ever. I was like, I'm a smart guy. I can write well. I can do this too. And then the doors to the future just open right there on that chance meeting.
It's something how in the darkest moments, we can really find the light. We can really find our purpose. It's unfortunate, but sometimes that's what it takes. And again, going back to analogies, man, behind the wall, people are lifting weights, doing push-ups, doing pull-ups, they're running, they're doing all type of resistance work to make their bodies thicker, stronger, more capable.
Right.
And so I think that the same thing, we have to put in that work, whatever that work is, to make our minds more thicker or more capable of being able to do better than what we've done in the past, because we have everything we need right inside of us. It's just about tapping in and bringing it out. Hence the word educate, which comes from educe or educere, which means to bring out that which is within, that which is latent. And so we're coming up on like 5 minutes left in our time together. And so one of the things I want to ask you, and I ask everybody this, and that is, if there was something about your story that you wanted people to know, and imagine it was on a billboard on the highway most traveled that everybody could read and they'd see, or maybe it was the title of your book or the title of your journey on a marquee, what would that read? Some snapshot of where you've been, where you are, and where you're going. What would that title be?
Wow, what an excellent question. I would say it would be quite the run-on sentence, and I would discuss how, you know, basically pulling out of the darkness, and you can do it too.
Pulling out of the darkness, and you can do it too. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was going down, and life circumstances, God and myself turned it around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's nothing unique about me that says other people can't also do the same thing in their own lives when they don't like their situation. You can change it.
Yeah, you can change it. You just got to be willing to put in that work, baby. And you need some help. Need some help. Yeah. So pulling out of the darkness. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that, man. And so if people wanted to reach you or know more about you, is there any way people can connect with you via social media or directly, or anything that you'd like to share?
I am pretty easy to find on social media. Peter Felix Armstrong. I think there's only one.
The one and only Peter.
Yeah, so I'll show up on any search engine, or Peter Armstrong at mitchellhamline.edu.
Dope. Yo, Peter, it's been great talking to you, man. I really
Great talking to you too.
Yeah. And with that, man, I'm gonna call it a wrap.
All right. Thank you for your time, Dr. Waleed.
Absolutely. And check it out. Thank you too. What I'm going to ask you to do, man, is if you could send me a mini bio